Black Lives Matter? Why does the movement matter?
I think there's been systematic oppression of black people and of other minority races for hundreds and hundreds of years. There's never been any reparations. There's never been any, possibility for equality. And I think that women had their time to get equality in the 20th century, and hopefully now is the time for true equality for all races.
This movement is so important because it's for our generation to pave the way and correct the faults of the past generation.
What is the kind of goals that we should be aiming to try and change that?
I think the systems have to change before society will change. I think it's easy to blame individuals, and often it is very right to blame individuals, but until the systems have to be broken down and reformed for any real change to happen, in Parliament, in the police, in prisons, in schools, in every governmental system, there is racial bias and racism.
But unfortunately, we need change now, but it is going to be a systematic change which takes understanding.
And the social change as well, like changing the minds of people, I think is a hard thing to do, but I think it's about having the conversations and not normalising racism, but being aware of it and talking about it, and I think that's changed.
There's a lot of people at the moment that's saying, what's the point? Why are we doing it here? It's happening in the US. What do you say to that?
Excuse me, have you seen the racism in this country? It's disgusting.
Because racism is still a universal issue. I feel like people in the UK can't become complacent and just make the assumption that because institutional racism isn't as blatant in the UK as it is in the US, that therefore we don't have our own part to play and our own responsibility to educate ourselves and to be actively anti-racist.
I think it's so hard because I feel like in America it's so much more obvious, whereas here it's subtle. It's still 100% there and it's ingrained in us, but it's subtle, so it's harder for people to like open their eyes and see it, especially if you don't experience it. It's hard to see it, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. It's just harder to see, I think. Right. And we should educate ourselves in it to learn to see it.
Have you had any experiences with racism before?
I myself haven't, but my dad, he's half Guyanese, so his dad came over with the Windrush generation, and I've been with him when we've had like a few instances of him being taken to one side and people to double check why he was there. When I was in like year 8, a girl in my year had a party. She's from quite like a wealthy family, so she lived at One Hyde Park, and then one of the bodyguards of the building pulled my dad to one side to ask him why he was there, and then asked me to verify that he was in fact my dad rather than just someone who was just there to cause trouble.
So what do you think schools is teaching young children enough about equality and racism?
I think definitely not, and I think it's probably one of the most useful places to start because children are so impressionable and they make up kind of the whole adult generation obviously in a few years' time. And in history, we never learnt about Britain's colonial past, any aspects that would be considered racist about our past. And there's no harm in doing that. You have to acknowledge your past, you can't kind of brush over it. And I think in the long term, that would really not improve things, but just make it much more aware and transparent. I think that's a good place to start.
I think it's such a monumental failure of the education system that we only learn about the greatness of Great Britain, even though our history is one of the most horrific, tragic ones in the whole world. And I think that needs to change.
And I think because we learned, when we were at school we did civil rights in America, but again that's very American based and it's not based here in the UK, and I study history at uni. And even then it's very limited, and I feel like all of these political figures are so glorified, like Winston Churchill. Whilst he did get the country through World War II, it's not about and that was a great thing. But I think we also need to acknowledge that he wasn't just this amazing man. He did do some terrible things, and it's one-sided, and we need to learn about both sides. That's not diminishing what he did, but also we need to acknowledge that he's not a saint.
No, he's a huge racist. He called Gandhi a half-naked fakir. So he brought Gandhi down, who's like the most of the 20th century. He's the one person who's actually included like how we speak about lives and how we like try and like create a peaceful protest. That's Gandhi. He called him a half-naked fakir.
Yeah, and that's why we need to be tearing down these statues of like racist individuals. Like I find that, I love that. I think that's so great. We need to be doing more of that, because why do we have like statues of slave owners in the UK? Like, why do we have that? Like, it's bizarre. And that needs to be, we need to talk about that and say, why do we glorify these individuals just because they did something great for the economy? Like, that's not what it's all about. There's so much more, you know.